Hi everyone, Frederik here with a new example on the setup of the Autotrader. First, the risk disclosure. Trading involves substantial risk of loss. It's not suitable for all investors. You should carefully consider whether trading is suitable for you. You can lose all or more than your initial investment. These videos are for educational purposes only and should not be seen as trading advice or an implied promise or guarantee that you will profit or limit your losses in any way. I'm not a financial advisor. I don't make any trading recommendations to trade, and you can read the full risk disclosure and terms and conditions on the SST website. So with that out of the way, let's start with today's content. What I want to show you first thing is that you can take any general signal study or indicator that produces arrows and use it to generate signal studies that the Autotrader can read. As we know from the website, the Autotrader is basically reading subgraph values from the signal study. If it reads a 1, we will take a long, and if that signal study subgraph value reads a -1, we will enter short. That's the lowdown of that procedure. And we can use the built-in color bar based on alert condition study in ShareAchart to construct that. I've made a few videos already to do that, but we're going to go through that again. And this time we're going to use a signal or a study indicator that generates arrows. We probably have a few of them. We bought a few of them, and it could be one part of your full signal. We're going to take that as a first step to generate a signal study that the Autotrader will be able to read. So let's start with that. I'm going to load the MACD crossover, just an example. This one has subgraphs with a buy or sell arrow, as you see right here. One thing, before we do that, we just load the Autotrader study first. That's good practice. We make sure that's loaded first, then we load the MACD crossover. Then we're gonna take the color bar based on alert condition and load it in here. And this time we're gonna leave it here and just see the arrows here, the arrows of that MACD crossover. If we use Windows Tool Values window, we can hover over every bar and see the subgraph values. You see the subgraphs of MACD crossover study right here. And when there is an arrow, you see that it has a certain price value of that subgraph. And if there's no arrow, there's a value of 0. That's true for the buy and also the sell one. So we're going to use that to generate a long signal. So let's generate that long signal. First name it. And I always set this to ignore because I already have something visual. And we're going to set that alert condition. So if you look at that arrow here, let's take that alert condition. We have to take the ID of the MACD crossover study. It's ID 2. The buy is a subgraph 1. We just saw that. If that's not equal, this is not equal to 0, then we have an alert condition set. So that alert condition will make sure that this color bar based on alert condition, which now becomes our long signal, that is a value of 1 with this alert condition. So we hover over this and we see that long signal study subgraph color bar now is a 1. So we can use that as our long signal. The same thing we can do for the short signal. We duplicate that thing and we first start with the name and we change this subgraph, still the same ID, ID2, but then it's subgraph 2, not equal to 0. If we use the tool values window now, we see that at the, there we go, we have a red arrow down here. We will see that the short signal generates a 1. And that's a thing we don't want. We want a -1. So I've shown in previous videos and on my blog post, we can do that quite simply with a little trick. It's not that hard, just follow along. That short signal, you want a -1. We need to do, in this case, 2 things. We set use -1 on false to yes. In the blog post, this is set to ignore, but it's already there at ignore. And what we need to do is set this whole statement here in brackets and use an exclamation point to set it to false. So this will generate a -1 on the occasion where we have that red arrow down. You see, short signal study, color bar, -1 on that arrow. So that's what we need. Now we have a long and a short signal generated. So let's have a look at what else we want to have as that example. We move down here. You have the signal, that's done. Now we want to enter. We want to enter at the bar close. That's already a setting in the SST Autotrader, so that's no issue. But if I'm looking at all these signals here, I actually want to have a conservative entry. I want to enter based on the length of the signal bar, and I want to enter at 1/3 of the lows of that signal bar for a long, and 1/3 of the high of the signal bar for a short. So we need to set that up. So if you see this short here, we would enter somewhere here with a limit order down, which is a nice entry. This we would probably miss that entry. It doesn't come down that much. And here we will get the entry. We'll have an initial pop-up. Here we would get an entry as well and have a pop-up. Here you would get that entry as well. You probably, depends on your stop setting, you could probably stop out. But that's just an example on how you can approach this. So what the entry rules are, I just made them up, but you can make up anything and make it work with these studies. So I'm going to use a very powerful study in Share a Chart. You might already know it, but that's spreadsheet formula. It's not the full spreadsheet thing, but just spreadsheet formula study. Very powerful. What you can basically do here is construct a formula that will generate a value, and that value will be your subgraph. So the result of this formula will be transferred or available to you as a subgraph, and that's very powerful. So let's say we want to make this our long entry price. And what we said, we want to have it 1/3 of that signal bar. So we have a bar close situation. So the signal bar is a previous bar. So what we want is the low of that previous bar. So that's a -1 in that index, plus some value times, let's do 30%, but you could do any number you want. And that value here is the length of the signal bar. So that's basically the high of the signal bar minus the low of that signal bar. So this will generate a subgraph, and we can show it in the bar here as well. So we'll show it here as a green line. That will show the price value of 1/3 from the low of the previous bar. So if you look here, this is the calculated value, 1/3 of the length of that bar from the low. So it does that for every bar. So what we get here is we have the signal bar, we get the low of the signal bar, and 1/3 of that bar is this value. And that will be the price entry value for our limit order. And in this case, it will never touch it. In that same, let's close this off here. In that same example, we're going to set up. I want to cancel the order after 1 bar. So we're going to enter with a limit order at this price, and we'll cancel it if it's still waiting there after 1 bar. So that's what we're going to do. So looking at this signal here, we get a nice entry here. Signal here, 1/3 is right here. So we need to do the same thing for, for the short. So that short entry. And I'm going to name those studies. It's very important to make sure you select the correct one when you set up the Autotrader. Okay, let's see. Now we need to have that short entry price. That will be based on the high of the signal bar minus 1/3, in this case 1/3 of the whole length. So let's make this red color for now and set that up, and let's just set this up to ignore because we already know it's good. And here we will see the short price. So the short price here, you see a short signal, 1/3 of the length of the signal bar, price right here. Okay, so you have a nice entry here, and there is an entry here, and take another example. There's entry, possibly entry here, 1/3 from the top. So this is a system that I would like to test. So now we're gonna set this baby to ignore because I don't want to see it. I believe it now. I've seen it. And we're gonna set up that Autotrader study. The Autotrader, we move it all the way down. So we make sure that if it's moved down, that the calculation order is last. So it will track those prices and it will track those signals. All right, let's set the thing up. We want to have the full bracket of times. You can set 3 session times, but I'll keep the full bracket here. We'll use stop orders and target orders. We want to use shorts and longs. And for this setup, I just want to have 1 target and 1 stop. The maximum total position size will be 1, and that's your safety setting here. It will not get any bigger than that. We'll use time and force of day. We don't do anything with scaling, anything with reversing or adding. Won't cancel anything based on any signals. We'll need to enter the signal study here. So the long is that one, and the short, because we named it, is that one. We already set entry at bar close with a limit order. Max entries per bar is only valid for using intrabar entries. So we can keep that as it is. A limit order, and here we're going to set the limit order entry limit price option. We have an option here to set it at a study SG value, which is handy because when we set that limit order entry price here, we will have to set that study SG for longs here. That's the long entry price. And here it's the short entry price. Those will be your IDs and subgraphs for that entry price. So limit order entry, limit price option, study SG value. We use that so we fill in this study SG value long and short. All the others are not relevant. Do you want to follow the SG value when it changes? Right now we don't, because we only leave it there for one bar, and we basically don't want to follow the new price on every new bar. So we're going to leave that to no. We have order cancellation option. We will set this to a bar-based cancel. Set this to bar-based cancel, second one to 1 bar. And this will cancel the limit order if it's not filled in that 1 bar, which will make it nice and autonomous. We have a first target, and what we can do with the target value, let's set it relative to our signal bar length. That's the only option I have at the moment for signal bar, for relative option. But let's make it 100% of the signal bar. So we're looking to have a target that's set at the length of the signal bar. There's no second, no third target. We have a stop option. What I decided to do is stop 4 ticks from the signal bar, top and bottom. Okay, so we have a long, we want to have 4 ticks below the signal bar's bottom of the bar. So that's the options here. The initial stop option we'll set on high-low signal bar, and we could set an offset in ticks. And if you add to this adding this to the stop value, so a plus value will add the amount of ticks to the stop. So we want to have in this case 4 ticks, so we add 4 ticks offset. So we have a 4 tick offset from the high or the low of the signal bar, depending if you're long or short. Short or long. We do not have to move to break even. There's no trailing, and there's no settings here on trade statistics. You want to keep it. So those are the settings. The settings for this study. So let's replay a bit. Take the last day or so. We replay, start with the study off. Gonna let that replay kick in, and let's see. All right, that replay is now running at speed 1, very slow, but we need to take the time to check a few things. For the Autotrader to work, we need to set Autotrading Global on. That's in the trade menu right here. Global needs to be on, chart needs to be on. If you want to see orders, you need to set those. Show orders and positions, show your fields. I would also like to have that trade window attached just to have a look at them. If you have your, just a side note here, if you have your targets and stops set all here, and you don't want to use the Autotrader to set those because there's a few order types that I did not implement yet on the Autotrader. If you set that up here, you could still use them in the Autotrader, because there's one setting, that's this one. Use share a chart interface, graphical user interface for attached orders. If you set that to yes, then the Autotrader will just use the orders that are already in your settings, and the Autotrader will not manage them. So you will have preset orders from your brackets or anything you have here, and that's it. So you could use that if you want to. A side note, we should check your auto trading global. It's on. We can turn on the Autotrader, and right now we are just waiting for that first signal. So let's fire up the speed a little bit and get those signals in. Okay, signal, bar close, entry, stop, and target. So that's all there is. And this will run until it's done. I'm not sure how good this is, but there's a fill, and there's your target hit. Let's see if you can get a signal and a no fill. That would be nice to see that order canceled if it's not filled in the first bar. Let's see if we can get that to show. There we go. That's a fill and a target hit. That was a quick one. Also hit. Looks pretty nice. You can do your own back testing. I will leave the chart book for you. You can fiddle with it, make your own implementation, use it. Here we see there was no fill on this long and it got cancelled. So it seems to work quite well. Interesting. So that's the example I want to show you. Quick example on how you can set up some kind of system with some kind of indicator or study that produces arrows. And you can have many variations of this approach. So I hope you value this. Let me know in the comments or send me an email. Glad to help you out, and enjoy. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.